Carl Feindt there, who his beat is to talk about USOs, which are basically, UFOs underwater. And so maybe Shag Harbor's a case where you have both UFOs, and so then you speculate. If there are aliens visiting here, where would they build bases? You might think that they would have a base. Well, there might be one on the far side of the moon, who knows? But if they were to build one on our planet, the most likely place I would think for them to build it would be underwater, because it's the one place still on our planet that we cannot detect everything that's going on down there. Honestly, we don't know what's going on in the true depths of the ocean because we can't get down there, or only with great effort and only very rarely can we get down there. So the possibility exists that, if I was going to say Area 51, no, that's not the alien base. I'll tell you where the alien base is. If there really is one, it's underwater somewhere. That would make sense to me. And that, might explain, if you want to look at it just as the extraterrestrial spacecraft thing, that might explain why some UFOs, including in the Shag Harbor case, but there are others, are seen entering and leaving the oceans. So who knows? That's one of the things that makes that case interesting.
Yeah, it was a good film. Top 10 sightings, UFO sightings, best evidence. There's some great stuff in there, and I believe that one of the sightings that made the cut was the Tehran sighting. Was it by General Jafari? Was that the sighting?
Yes, 1976 over Iran. I call it the Iranian fighter jet case, but basically a UFO seen over a suburb of Tehran. The Iranian Air Force, they were allies of the United States at the time, so the pilots had been trained by the United States Air Force. It was before the Islamic Revolution. So two fighter jets at different times, one after the other, went to intercept this bright light that people had seen in the sky very quick. Each of them lost instrumentation. They couldn't lock their weapons on. Communications went out. When the pilots peeled away, turned away from the object, all of those things returned. So the object, or the whatever it was, had the ability to interrupt. Highly sophisticated. I think they were F-4 Phantom jets. The Iranians also had, sophisticated American military hardware, as all of America's allies do. Imagine the irony after they stopped being your allies. They still have it, but now they're not on your side. But in this case, they were still on our side, and they still had this. They had this hardware, and so these are sophisticated planes with well-trained pilots, and you have visual sightings from the ground as well. There's a bunch of other things going on with the case too. It was investigated by the Defense, I think it was the Defense Intelligence Agency, the DIA in the United States. They sent a report back. When people talk about UFO disclosure, you hear a lot of people talk about, the government's keeping secrets, there's an alien presence, all this, and we need disclosure. Well, the truth is, at least as I see it, UFO disclosure has happened. Not just, as they say, in the United Kingdom or Brazil. It happened in the United States first. It happened decades ago when they released the Project Blue Book files, and it's happened since when things like the report on the Tehran incident came out. Now, if you look at the report, which we include a little bit of it in the film, it's clear that they don't know what it was that those pilots encountered. The report itself says this is a classic, something along the lines of this is a DIA report that went to the White House, the Pentagon, that kind of thing, CIA. This is a classic case that meets all the hallmarks for a serious study of the UFO phenomenon. This happened in 1976, 7 or 8 years rather, after the United States Air Force had officially gotten out of investigating UFOs, after the Condon Committee, which was sponsored by the USAF, out of the University of Colorado, said there's nothing to the UFO phenomenon, no need to look into it. But the government and science had basically washed their hands of it. And still, less than a decade later, you're still getting the government is investigating these cases, you are having good cases come up, and they're saying that they're unknown. So then you get down to the question of, which is kind of the unspoken question, well, is there a cover-up? And I would say, in a limited sense, yes. The cover-up is they don't know what UFOs are. So they haven't had conversations with aliens who've landed in the White House lawn or whatever. Our governments don't know what these unidentified flying objects are. And no government wants to admit that they don't know what's going on in the skies above their country. Because, on the list of things governments are supposed to do, that's pretty high. Mm-hmm. Like, collect taxes and make sure people feel and are kept safe. So no government wants to admit that they don't know what's going on up there and they can't explain these things. And I think that's what they don't want to talk about. But the reports are there, they're very clear, and they took it very seriously. So yeah, the Tehran case was number 2, And
I don't want to put a spoiler out there and have you tell everybody what number one is. The General Jafari sighting and Shag Harbor sighting and all the other ones. You can go to redstarfilms.com and watch the movie free for yourself. Go online and check it out because it's a good one.
I should correct you just for a second, Justin.
Oh.
They can watch it free online, but our actual website address is redstarfilmtv.com.
Right.
So if they went to redstarfilms.com, it's probably a porn site or something. Ooh, Paul makes those kind of films nice. But yeah, not only that, but there's an episode of our series Ghost Cases, and all of our UFO-related films that we've made, I think, all of them are available for free at our website.
Yeah, there's some good stuff on there. And that's my segue into Beyond Best Evidence, the UFO Enigma. This is the new project that you're trying to get off the ground. It's the sequel to the film we're just talking about there, and you're looking for funding at this point. How's that going for you?
Less well than I would like, but there's been some people who've stepped forward. I think now this will sound like a large number, I think, to people, but we're looking to raise $25,000. If you've never made a film, it's an expensive proposition. Even if I paid myself nothing, it's still an expensive proposition. Not to just start by saying I have to fly to all these various places to interview all these people to be in the film.
Yeah.
And go from there. And then there's cameras and everything else. We have other sources of funding, tax credits, there's some private investment. So the $25,000 that we're trying to raise is really, it's one piece of the puzzle. The total budget is about $100,000, which is pretty small for a 1-hour documentary. We're going to crowdfunding, which a lot of filmmakers are doing now.
Yep.
For feature films, indie feature films, but also for documentaries. Musicians are doing it. All sorts of people are doing it.
I think everybody needs to do it now with the finances the way they are.
Well, yeah, and the way that television is developed, frankly, it's a film like Best Evidence would be very hard to get made today. It was easier to sell just 5 years ago in 2006. We would pre-sell it to a network. Space would license it, and then we still own it, but we go out and use their money to make it, and then they get to air it for a couple of years.
Right.
It still happens, but now so-called reality TV is the primary thing that they're interested in because it's really cheap and, easy to produce, and you can just fire it out.
Yeah.
And documentaries, they don't build an audience, a one-off documentary. Whereas a reality show like, I don't know, Operation Repo or something, you'll get that sort of repeat business. But a single documentary about a UFOs or anything, hit or miss. Maybe it'll be successful, maybe it won't, but it's a risk. And so the networks have shied away from that. And it would be even harder to get a film like Beyond Best Evidence made because we're not even going to be really talking about the cases so much and flying saucers and everything. We're going to be saying, UFOs are an objective reality. Now let's talk about what it could mean. So now we're going to be talking about the theories and the implications for humanity. That's an even harder sell because it's the kind of documentary that will make people think. And the last thing that networks these days want to do is make people think because they're convinced that people don't want to think. I'm convinced that the networks are wrong, and at least some people still want to think out there and be challenged and have interesting and new information presented to them. But the way to do that, I think, is, you kind of have to make that on your own, using resources beyond just the mainstream media and networks. And crowdfunding, there you go. So we started an Indiegogo campaign, and I think we've raised about $1,200 of the $25,000 so far.
Right.
And people can come in, they could contribute $1,000, or they can contribute $5 or $1 or $2. Happy Meal at McDonald's.
Yeah, exactly.
And help us make a film that I think will be unique amongst UFO documentaries because it will go beyond just talking about flying saucers or aliens and talk about all of it, and then ask the question at the end, well, okay, we have no intention of giving anybody any answers, like a definitive, here's what it is. All I want to do is say, here are all the possibilities, and I think it's time for more of us to start asking the questions. And, go find your own answers. But this is where you should start looking, at least.
Sure, yeah. And for all of you guys listening out there, if you do go to the website and make a donation for Beyond Best Evidence, if you donate a certain level, you'll get credit in the film.
Right.
So,
yeah,
there's other incentives, too.
So I think at $5, which is the lowest level, if you donate $5, I think you get 25% off the DVD price when it's eventually released. And then it kind of goes up from there. Eventually you hit, hey, you get a free DVD and a poster, and Well, we tried to make it as interesting and, sort of give people value for their money as best we could coming back from it. So if anybody, hey, folks, I'm reduced to the point where I have to, I hate doing this. It's the part of the business I hate. But you can't make films without money. So if folks want to support the film or are interested in it, the place to go would be www.indiegogo.com/UFO.
Now, beyond best evidence, the UFO Enigma, what's the basic premise of this one?
Well, the idea is, to take, it's kind of like the sequel of Best Evidence. So at the end of Best Evidence, we had, here's 10 cases that prove beyond any reasonable doubt that there's an objective reality to the UFO phenomenon, whatever that might be. Mm-hmm. And I gave the final word to Mac. And unfortunately, Mac's not with us anymore, but right. We'll be using Mac. The idea was always to say, Mac, you get the last minute and a half in Best Evidence. So what does this all mean? Where should we go from here? And so Mac's point was, look, we don't know what UFOs are, but all of these cases that you just seen should show us that we should be taking it more seriously and looking into the possibilities. Thanks for watching. And, then the credits roll. The idea being that we would do a second one that he was going to have a much larger, that was the bridge. Mm-hmm. So all the people who speak in Best Evidence, Stan, Don Ledger, no offense to them, but they're all pretty much over 60, some of them over 70. That's the old generation.
Yeah.
So we took a look at the research, we presented their findings, here are the cases. But now it's time for a new generation to take over. Mac was the fulcrum of that. So at the end of that film, he was the bridge. Into the new film, he was going to be the voice, along with others. He'll still be in there because, fortunately, I just lucked out. I interviewed him. I had a very lengthy interview with him where he talked about a whole bunch of things. So I'll be using that footage in the new film.
Great.
But, we'll be talking to people like Nick Redfern, Greg Bishop. I'm trying to go down. Steve Mera, who's in the United Kingdom. Dave Clark, who's a British researcher. There's a long list of people about what the UFO phenomenon might be. So we're not going to give you another list of cases.
Right.
Already done that. We're moving beyond that. We're going to say, okay, well, what might the answers be? Are they extraterrestrials from outer space? Let's look at that theory. Let's look and see if it's plausible. Are they extra-dimensionals? How, and not just here's the theory, here's what it means, but how might they present themselves to us? So who are they? And I don't think very many people have ever really asked that question. They just kind of assume, well, okay, aliens from outer space would be about, 500 years more advanced than us, but basically it's like Star Trek. They look like Klingons or Romulans or Vulcans, but they act like us, they look like us, they think like us. They're just technologically more advanced than us, which is kind of like the Europeans showing up, in the Pacific Islands in the 1800s.
Yeah.
Cultural differences for sure, but basically, hey, we're all the same. We're kind of the same. We're just more technologically advanced than you are, and we have slightly different cultures, but at least we're recognizable to each other. Maybe, but if you're looking at a truly non-human extraterrestrial or alien, if you will, intelligence, wherever it's coming from, I think there's a much better chance that it is truly alien, that it is far in advance of us. It communicates in different ways, and it might appear to us in different ways. So, we'll present the nuts and bolts flying saucer possibility. But then we'll say, well, okay, maybe. But if extraterrestrials from other planets are really contacting us, is that how it's going to look? Or is it going to be done in a different way? Maybe they don't have to leave their planet. Maybe they've developed a way of communicating between the star systems, which frankly seems much more possible to me, or plausible. And so maybe they communicate to us through our subconscious, which is something that I've been looking into lately, which might explain a whole bunch of things throughout human history.
Right.
But maybe they communicate to us through our dreams, our subconscious. Maybe they communicate to us through music and art and inspiration. Mm-hmm. And then they talk about a unified field theory. Then you can bring in other things like religion or spirituality if you want. And not organized religion, but the idea that humans have had this contact with a superior, advanced, non-human intelligence, and we've called it God. Well, okay, maybe God and space aliens are the same thing, just presenting themselves to us in different ways throughout our own sort of history, and all of that sort of stuff. So that's the kind of stuff in a nutshell, and I don't think I've just done it justice, but that's what we're going to be looking into. So it's very much more theoretical, without this is deadly, dire, serious theory in a book. It's going to be fun theory. It's going to be speculative. It's going to be, the best way to put it is kind of out there and no holds barred. And at the end of the day, people can go, okay, that was crap, that was crap, that was crap. Wait a second. Oh, that part, though. Oh, that's interesting. Maybe there's something to that.